technicians and critics, followed by a discussion, an open session of Q&A. I'm here to moderate the panel and to introduce the topics and the panelists. So we will cover the following topics: curatorial decisions and unconventional venues for presentation. We'll also talk about the global scope and artist studios from around the world. We'll take a look at the common language that exists now to stimulate critical discourse. And then we will talk tech, which we love here. We'll talk about the research and development of new sound diffusion and distribution systems. And I've kind of put everyone in order here. Stephan Moore, who is a composer, improviser, and audio artist. His creative work is currently manifest as electronic studio compositions, but he also doubles as a sound art curator. He was curating series at Issue Project Room, and his latest project is the Sonic of Garden Delights. So he will tell us about that and tell us about some of the decisions that were made in creating that particular exhibition. The exhibition is in Westchester County. You can take the train up to Katona, and it's really a lovely garden where you can seek out various site-specific sound art pieces, and I would totally recommend it. So we'll hear from Stephan first, and then we're actually going to be playing round robin with our projectors and our sound systems. So we just take a moment as we change from artist to artist. So Stephan?
Thank you, Carol. And so I'm going to talk a bit about this exhibition in the Garden of Sonic Delights that Carol just mentioned. And as she said, that was a perfect introduction because I consider myself first to be an artist, and I don't have any formal training in being a curator. I was kind of happily thrown into the circumstances where I became one and have been doing sort of different kinds of work along those lines. This was my first time ever organizing a large sound art situation, and so I want to talk through just from the perspective of how I looked at what the exhibition was going to be, what the exhibition became, and sort of talking through that process, maybe thinking of it as kind of a case study, and maybe that can be interesting for however to sort of see behind the scenes of how something like that comes together, and then I'm happy to take questions about it later on. So the exhibition is called In the Garden of Sonic Delights. It is all across Westchester County, 16 artists, 15 artworks that were made, which strangely, it was not planned this way, but is exactly the same number of artworks and artists that were in the sounding show at MoMA last year. And these were scattered across 6 venues. The primary venue where 10 of the works are exhibited is called the Caramoor Center for Music and the Arts, which, as Carol mentioned, is just outside Katona, New York. You can get there in an hour on the Metro North from Grand Central. And there are 5 other organizations that partnered with us at Caramoor to each display one work in the exhibition. And those, these are organizations I didn't know about, having lived in the city, until I started to get to know Westchester better, but they're all worth knowing about. The Jacob Burns Film Center, the Hudson Valley Center for Contemporary Art in Peekskill, Lyndhurst Manor, just outside Carytown, the Newburgh Museum of Art at SUNY Purchase, which was really great to have as a partner because of their role in having a very comprehensive sound art show in 1981, also called Soundings. It was great to be able to make a connection with them. And then also the Stone Barn Center for Agriculture in Cantico Hills. So just a few notes about Caramoor, how this whole situation began. It really was their initiative that I became part of. Caramoor is, I think of it as almost a small kind of a Tanglewood situation for Westchester. They have a 7-week-long summer music festival that happens every year. And there's also sort of a mansion that is also turned into a museum. It's been around since 1946. The houses and everything were built in the sort of throughout the 30s, but it was in the mid 40s when they started doing this summer music festival. It's begun from there. And then there are also educational programs that they do, and there are also these beautiful gardens that they maintain, which were part of the original estate as well. So I had my first conversations with them in March of 2008. This is when we first started talking about the idea of having an exhibition here. And the idea that the reason that they were interested in doing it was to bring in a new audience. Every presenter that does a lot of classical music, as you've been hearing since the 80s, their audiences are aging and they want to try and bring in new audiences. And they, I think, had up until then been doing the thing that a lot of symphony presenters do, where you commission a piece of music and then you start the concert with Brahms, you do the piece of new music, and then you end with Ravel, and you hope that people sit through the piece in the middle. And it's not always the best way to present that work, because the people who come to hear the Brahms and the Ravel present the middle thing, and the people who want to hear new music have gone to a show of new music somewhere else and aren't at this concert. So their idea was, what if there's a different way of presenting new sound work that doesn't involve displacing other things that would be in our concert series? And so they thought sound art would be a method of doing that. They also thought sound art can be very approachable, because if you don't like it, you can get up and leave. There is a durational aspect to the work, obviously, which is important to emphasize to audiences. But if an audience member simply isn't having it, they're not locked into a concert seat uncomfortably for the duration of the piece. They can wander away and find something else they do like. And finally, because Caramoor spends a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of manpower every year maintaining the gardens, and they were concerned that people don't really spend enough time checking them out. So it was a way to feature this aspect of the organization that they really liked. And so this was kind of the brief that I was originally working with. We spent years developing, as you can tell from 2008, developing language around what a sound art exhibition would be. How do you even explain it to an organization that's used to raising funds for orchestras and string quartets and chamber music and the occasional jazz concert, but doesn't have really any idea what sound art is and is having trouble even kind of explaining it. A lot of grant language really wants to know what things are, and as I'm sure we'll get into in other conversations, knowing exactly, hitting down what sound art is can be very difficult. It's maybe easier to say what it isn't in a few cases, but even then that gets slippery. So we went through this period for a while. At one point I actually gave up on the project, left New York, started graduate school at Brown University, almost forgot that this project even existed. And then a grant came through, and this is where we really started to work, was in December of 2012. So just about 18 months ago, we learned that we had a significant chunk of funding that came through from the Regional Economic Development Council of the Mid-Hudson Valley. They had applied for this grant, and it came through, and with it came an obligation on the part of the organization to match it. And with that, I all of a sudden was guaranteed my entire budget in one fell swoop for the project. So that led to all of a sudden there having to be a lot of decisions to make, not the least of which was how was I going to suddenly be the curator of this project while I was in the middle of doing a graduate degree that it was not on the horizon at all when I had originally imagined the project. I'll leave sort of my own personal hurdles out of it and just sort of talk about how we went forward with it. As I said, there were some unique circumstances that began the whole project. One is that like I mentioned, our funding was secure from the start. The second was that Caramoor, as a music presenter, I chose to think of it as